That sounds entirely reasonable, doesn't it, Clay? 50 people shot. That's too many people. I think we're all clear on that. It's not like this is aberrant numbers for Chicago either. This is some random. No, on Labor Day weekend, you go back, there are a lot of weekends where you have 30 shot, 40 shot. I mean, these numbers are out of control. And it was very interesting to me, Clay, this morning. Sure enough, on good old MSNBC, there was a conversation that was happening. And it was Joe Scarborough, who we'll get into this, reaching out, in essence, to the Democrat intelligentsia, including the governor of Illinois, who, of course, includes in its environs the city of Chicago, saying that it is time to partner up with Trump on the issue of crime. This is on MSNBC. Play 4.
I actually think that JB Pritzker should do something radical. I think he should pick up the phone, call the president, and say, you know and I know you don't have the constitutional authority to deploy the National Guard here and to police my. You can do that in D.C., you can't do that in Chicago. But let's partner up. These are the most dangerous parts of my state. We would love to figure out how to have a partnership that's constitutional, that respects the sort of balance of federalism between the federal government and the state government. And let's work together to save lives.
That sounds entirely reasonable, doesn't it, Clay? It sounds like the kind of thing that somebody who might be trying to make a move to be a voice to bring the Democrats not toward the center but toward sanity would be making. Good old Morning Joe. I think he sees a lane, Clay.
He's wrong saying the president doesn't have the authority. He's 100% right with everything else he said. This is what should happen. This is to give her credit. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser seems to be doing, to the best of her ability, an attempt to work with Trump to make Washington, D.C. safer. And I don't understand why anyone out there would be trying to prevent the president from making his or her city or state safer than it otherwise would be. And we have... here is Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, contrasting with the reasonable take that we just heard. That's what you would have heard on MSNBC. Worth noting that if you are losing Joe Scarborough on MSNBC, how many MSNBC viewers might be hearing somewhat sane takes suddenly as part of Trump 2.0? That to me is a sign that the virulent Trump is Hitler agenda, leave aside the fact that we all know it's a lie, it doesn't rate anymore. It doesn't actually motivate the viewers even.
You have Morning Joe there, Joe Scarborough himself, who, remember, is a former Republican, so he can play. You want to talk about code switching? This guy, he'll switch jerseys, he'll switch, whatever was going to...
He repped the Florida Gulf Coast, one of the most beautiful places in the country, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
So he would have been the 30A congressman, right? I mean, he would for that area
yes.
at one point,
yes.
right? I think so.
Yes.
As Clay says, God's country, on the Gulf of America, no less. On the Gulf of America, he would have been a congressman for it. But there's that position, and then you get the more hardcore left-wing Democrat position here from Chicago Mayor Johnson. This is cut 5. Here's the other approach to Chicago. Play it.
No federal troops in the city of Chicago. No militarized force in the city of Chicago. We're going to defend our democracy in the city of Chicago. We're going to protect the humanity of every single person in the city of Chicago.
Just slogans, meaningless community organizer slogans that will do nothing to bring down the murder rate, nothing to address the crime rate. I mean, somebody should ask the mayor of Chicago, is 50 people over the weekend shot in your city too much? Do you view that as an urgent problem, sir? And try to pin him down on this, because he would just go back into the slogans, Clay.
I don't understand what the audience is for arguing we're going to stand up to the president trying to bring more law and order to cities that 81% of Americans believe have too much violence. 99% of Americans believe have some form of violence that's too much. I don't understand who is out there. Again, This ties in, Buck, with the argument we saw from Mayor Karen Bass, where she just said the quiet part out loud. She said, well, we can't have more police and more National Guard troops because then too many black and brown people are going to get arrested. So you really have the argument being made of, well, there's going to be too many black and brown people arrested, so that's why we don't want more law and order in the city. But what about all the black and brown people who are going to be victims if these people are not arrested? That is the immediate question that's begged. And I think the vast majority of people out there, regardless of your background, want your kids to be safe and want to be able to walk in the streets and not worry about it. I have said for a long time, to me, the test of whether a neighborhood is safe is, are you okay with your wife, your girlfriend, your daughter, your granddaughter going for a jog at dusk in a neighborhood? Like if you're a woman who is significant in your life, or a girl who's significant in your life, goes outside and it's 6 p.m. and she's like, hey, I'm going to go for a jog for 30 minutes. Are you comfortable with her doing that? It should be the point. It should be the case that everywhere in America we are comfortable with that happening. But right now, tons of you listening, you'd say, yeah, my daughter, she can't go for a jog. My 16-year-old, she's training cross country, or she's a soccer player and she's trying to stay in shape. She can't go jogging if she might get out after dusk. So that is the ultimate test.
I lived this test, this reality in New York City in the 90s.
Yep.
Where it was, you can't go jogging at night. That's why the Central Park jogger case was, well, obviously it was horrific, but also it hit home for so many people. It's like, you can't even go jogging in Central Park in this city. That was without something horrific happening.
Yes.
And then you had the realities of you couldn't go to Central Park at night. But I would say, Clay, in these cases, we're talking about, would you be comfortable driving through these neighborhoods in a nice car in broad daylight? That's a difference. The standard you're talking about is true safety. I think the standard you could apply to the south side of Chicago, or I guess it's the south and some of the western precincts of Chicago, or, you could apply to the more dangerous parts of Memphis, New Orleans. You go down the list of these cities is, would you be willing to drive? Would you get in your friend's Mercedes or your friend's BMW or whatever and drive through these areas, spend an hour driving around and feel safe? And I think in some of these places, you would say absolutely not.
Would you stop and get gas? When you talked about this in we're not, I think, the primary people who are going to be victims of crime. And by which I mean, we're grown men, not elderly. Like, we're not, in theory, easy marks.
You see all those push-ups that Clay did on that video? Yeah. No one's going to mess with Clay.
We're not easy marks. I mean, we're 6 foot, decent-sized guys, right?
Got some weight to throw around over here, maybe a little too much, but I could box out if I need to.
But when you were in St. Louis and they told you, hey, you can't walk anywhere at this hotel, and when I was in Memphis,
they told me not to go stroll around at night by myself in the downtown. In the night, like the main part of downtown, the heart of the city. They straight up told me that.
I'm staying in one of the nicer areas of Memphis with my kid because he's got an event going on. And the lady working the front desk at the hotel at 8:30 p.m. was like, are you sure you want to go outside? And I was like, well, I forgot my charger. I'm just going to go fill up my gas tank and get a charger at the local gas station here. It's like, okay. Be careful. At 8:30? I mean, this is where we are. To your point, St. Louis, I want the National Guard called in, State Guard, but obviously in many different. I want to call it everywhere. I live in Tennessee. I wish they would call the National Guard in and deploy it in Memphis. And your point on St. Louis, I think a lot of people out there who live in the St. Louis area are like, yeah, I'd like more security. Kansas City, New Orleans, Chicago, Baltimore. Why would we not? If I were the governor, and a lot of you out there are like, oh, I don't know about that, Clay. If I were the governor, I'd be considering calling in the National Guard to deploy in the State Guard, but National Guard to deploy in Memphis and say, we're not going to allow Memphis to have a murder rate that is basically 20x what's happening in New York City. Not going to allow it. There's too many innocent people being killed. I think this is a great decision all over the place.
Well, I think that on crime and also on the border, for example, going forward, there's going to have to be some national level Democrat attempt to co-opt these issues for themselves a little bit, as in
Yeah.
they have to come up with we're part of the solution, not continue to perpetuate the problem, because these have become huge political liabilities for them. I mean, the immigration thing, the illegals, the 10 million under Biden was clearly a major, might have been the deciding issue, quite honestly, in this last election. I think you could argue that it was, meaning the single most, intractable, pervasive, and Democrats getting hammered on an issue. And so I think on this issue also of making cities safer, it may not change the vote in Chicago, but it might change the vote in some places that are purple. It might make people think in the suburbs of some of these cities, you know what? I can't vote for some lunatic Democrat again. And that's where the political weakness lies.
I'll tell you what it does. I think a lot of black guys, again, over 20% of them voted Trump in 2024. I think a lot of them look around and say this is unacceptable, and they don't accept the Brandon Johnson argument of, hey, we got to stand up. Like, why should we not have more safety? Why? And look, black women too, but they have been more committed to the Democrat Party. When you get to the point where it's 1 in 5, 1 in 4 black men are voting for Trump, that's a real conversation that's taking place now in the black community. And I think when you look around in Chicago, you say, this is unacceptable. By the way, I am fired up. The NFL is back this week. Buck, I don't even know that Buck knew, but there was an unbelievable college football game in his backyard, basically, in Miami, with the Miami Hurricanes hosting Notre Dame. Catholics versus convicts, old school matchup. You never hear that phrase?
Convicts, sir. Good heavens.
Miami Hurricanes were the convicts, and obviously Notre Dame was the Catholics. And it's a little politically incorrect, maybe, but also a great nickname for a great game. Now we have got tons of games going on. Thursday night, Cowboys-Eagles. Friday night, Chiefs-Chargers. And then everybody plays by Sunday. You can get hooked up with Prize Picks right now. Get $50. We're going to give you a pick every Thursday or Friday on this show of an NFL game. Players, I'm going to give them. Buck's going to learn some of their names. We're going to be rolling. All you have to do is go to prizepicks.com. Use code CLAY. Available in over 40 states right now. California, Texas, Florida, Georgia. You can play it. Easy to use. We'll give you the picks. You get $50 when you go sign up right now at prizepicks.com, code CLAY. That is prizepicks.com, code CLAY.